Hi, I'm Noel Bentley, and I'm the host of TEDxBearCreekPark. It's the event we're going to have online on Saturday, March 27th with 12 fantastic speakers, and we have one here today. It's Sue Blyth Hall. She's a dyslexia facilitator, author, and she's been featured on TV, radio, and in the newspaper. So welcome today. Good to see you, Sue.
Thank you very much. Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
So go ahead, fill us in a little bit more about yourself and how you came to this point.
Okay, well, obviously my talk is about dyslexia. So how I got there, somehow I managed to scramble through school. And I guess it was mostly on my people-pleasing skills as opposed to my academic prowess. And I remember choosing French, English, and German for A levels for some strange reason. I thought they would tell me about language, which I actually enjoy, strangely, but they didn't. They made me read books and poems and plays in 3 different languages. And I do remember the day I left school, walking home and feeling like my brain had imploded, like all the wires had just got frazzled. And I do remember promising myself that I would never, ever read another book as long as I lived. And I was able to keep that promise for at least a decade. It might have been 2, I think. I trained as a secretary, I traveled, but it wasn't until my son came along that his struggles got me into the world of learning challenges. And I didn't have any background in education. I was just a mom. I found it very strange that they kept giving him more of what he couldn't do. And so, long story short, we found something different. And this is what really pulled me into being a facilitator. At the end of this different program, he said to me, this is a 10-year-old, right? He said to me, Mom, dyslexia is like a wound. In the past, they gave me Band-Aids for it, but now I can heal it myself. And I don't think there's a mom out there who wouldn't have wanted to do something to help other kids with that same struggle. And so I trained to become a facilitator. And during my training, I discovered that I have this way of thinking too. Obviously, I didn't know that. So it was really fun.
Right. Well, exactly. And that leads us into, can you tell us about your talk and what you'll be speaking about without too many spoilers?
Well, I'm going to be talking about what I believe to be the reason dyslexia exists. And honestly, I can't go into the correction part of it, but I am going to point out that it might be possible to prevent the challenges from happening, which I think is very, very important because it affects a huge number of children and adults, obviously. And it's very important that at least they know that they're fine. I don't want to give too much else away, but all the students and adults that I've been working with, it's basically a mixture of all their experiences that come through in this talk. So I hope I'm speaking for the collective.
Right. Well, of course. And as you're saying, it affects such a great number of people. If you're speaking to those who don't feel they're affected by it or don't sense that a family member has been affected by it, what's the motivation for those people to also to listen to what you have to say?
Gosh, that's a good question. I'd be very surprised if there was anybody out there who hadn't met someone who was struggling. And the reason I say that is I give quite a lot of free information talks and Pro D days. And recently I was lucky enough to be at a talk for 100 women who care. And I was really, really surprised at the number of people who came up to me afterwards and said, gosh, my son, my daughter, my grandchild, I think it would be very unusual for somebody not to know someone who is affected by some sort of struggle. There's a lot of learning challenges out there.
Well, very much so. Very much so. And you've taken it, you do so much. So I'm kind of curious about what your experience has been like taking on the added challenge of giving a TEDx talk.
Well, this is a mixture of my worst nightmare and then my greatest struggle, because First of all, the TED organization, if anybody out there is thinking of doing a TED Talk, it is amazing. The organization, the communication, the coaching, every little question I've had in my head, as soon as we meet for one of our sessions, it's answered. It's like everybody knows what we're going through, because you guys have done this before, obviously, and it's an amazing organization. So I would strongly recommend, if anybody does feel like doing this, then go for it. And I do feel that I'm living proof that if I can do it, anybody can do it, because dyslexics, for one, hate repetition. They hate memorization. And, we're very easily disoriented. So it is a struggle, I'll be quite honest. And this is a disclaimer before anybody watches my session. But we're just so looked after and so nurtured. It's fantastic.
Right. So now for all of this work and even a TEDx talk on top of it, I'm kind of curious what inspires you, like what gives you the motivation to launch into these things?
My students, every single one who appears on my doorstep, they've had a struggle. They've been through so much. They've worked so hard. They just need our education system to acknowledge their way of thinking. They don't need to go through those struggles. And there are small changes that can be made, and it's not difficult, but it would make such a difference to their lives. So every single student, in terms of sort of famous people, Sir Ken Robinson is one of my heroes, because his talk on "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" I think it's probably the most watched iconic type of TED talk there is, I believe. And Ron Davis, who wrote The Gift of Dyslexia. So there we are.
Yeah, I mean, those definitely are some of the TED Talks that get a lot of hits, to say the least, and that we cite as models to do it. Is there anyone else that we wouldn't be aware of, perhaps? I know you talked about your students, or moments that have sort of stuck with you and that resonate with you, that you touch upon and say, and that give you strength to keep working so hard at this.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure about that. I guess the teachers too. I mean, I meet a lot of teachers at Pro D days, and they really want to be able to reach all their students. They want some more knowledge. I get the impression it's not a subject that is very well covered, if you like, in their teacher training. So I think parents, teachers, children, adults, it's a message that needs to go across the board. And apparently I know I enjoy doing it, so hopefully it makes a difference.
Well, absolutely. And I'm just curious, after people have heard your talk, do you envision that there's something simple or a first step that someone could take if they've now, they realize the importance and you've helped them understand situations better that maybe they hadn't considered before? What can they do?
Well, first of all, I'm sure there are people who hear my talk who might not be able to hear it, if you know what I mean. That's always a given. But then the people who hear it and resonate, there's two approaches. If the children have challenges already, there's a correction program. If the children are very little and they're wanting to learn this way from the beginning, because parents are dyslexic themselves and they feel that the children are most likely to have this way of thinking and they don't want the children to develop the challenges, then there's a sort of prevention program, if you like. And there's also something that teachers can learn in terms of presenting these methods to the whole class. So just get in touch with me, and I can show them the route that they need to take.
Oh, great. Thank you. Now we're just wondering, as we're wrapping up here, give you this moment to give your elevator pitch or whatever it might be, to ask people or convince them, hey, why should they come to TEDx Bear Creek Park Why should they listen to those talks?
Why should they listen to my talk? It's the information that I'm giving out is very, very different from the norm. And if the norm is not working for your child or yourself, then it doesn't hurt to hear something very different.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sue. Again, Sue Blyth Hall is one of our speakers at TEDx Bear Creek Park 2021. If you go to TEDxBearCreekPark.ca, you can register and receive your link for a complimentary ticket or link to see the entire program. And we want to thank our generous sponsors who are allowing us to deliver this to people. And with that, I'd like to thank you again, Sue.
My pleasure.
We'll see you again very soon.